Recording in progress.
Good afternoon and welcome to James Franklin's weekly press conference. We will start with an opening statement from Coach, and then our first question will go to Greg Pickle. Coach?
Like always, I want to thank everybody for getting on here and covering Penn State football. We appreciate it. I guess just a couple things before I get into reviewing our past game briefly. I would like to just send a message out to Brandon Short and his family and pass along our love and support and thoughts and prayers for him and his family. Getting into the summary of our last game against Ball State, I guess the things that really kind of jump out from a positive is the offensive ball security and defensive turnovers have been big so far this year. We want that to continue. We won the field position battle. We won the explosive play battle. And there was great examples of defensive pursuit. And I'm a big believer, and if you want to play great defense, that's a critical ingredient. And we're doing that at a pretty high level right now. Opportunities for growth, we lost the penalty battle. Specifically, we got to eliminate the pre- and post-snap penalties. We got to see what we're hitting consistently, keep our head up and see what we're hitting to keep our guys safe and healthy and keep the people we're hitting safe and healthy as well. And I think we got to do a little bit more, we got to do a little better job and more consistent job of protecting our quarterback. Too many hits on our quarterback. So that's kind of where we are with that. When you kind of talk about specific to Auburn and getting into these guys, obviously we're excited about the opportunity. Got a lot of respect for Auburn University, history, traditions. It's a pretty cool place, and obviously I got some familiarity with them as well from my time in that conference. I've known Coach Harsin for a number of years. Got a lot of respect for him and what he's been able to do in his career. You're talking about 16 returning starters on this club. Talented club, kind of what you expect to see when you turn on an SEC football team. Mike Bobo, I've known for a long time, got a lot of respect for Mike as a coach and as a man, does a really good job. Some of their personnel that jumps out to us is the running back Tank Bigsby, explosive and fast, makes a bunch of plays for them. Jarquez Hunter, another running back, then wide receiver, Shedrick Jackson. And then obviously their quarterback, Bo Nix, does a lot of things well. He's athletic. He can extend plays. He's accurate. I've been impressed with him. And then on defense, obviously you guys know I have some history with Derek Mason. Derek was one of the most respected defensive coordinators in all of college football. You talk about guys that we've been impressed with on tape as Owen Popo, a young man who we recruited out of high school. He really jumps off the tape and flashes to you. The other linebackers are Kobe McLean, and then defensive end Derek Hall, number 29, and corner number 23, Roger McCreary. Those are the guys that jump out, and not only that, back it up from a statistical standpoint. And then on special teams, Burt Watts, Demetrius Robertson, the punt returner and the kick returner, Donovan Kaufman. They've rotated a number of guys there, but seems like they're the two main guys, that they'll be leaning heavily on come Saturday night. So, again, appreciate the opportunity and look forward to take questions.
Greg Pickle, Blue White Illustrated. Tyler Donahue, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How you doing?
Good, Greg. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, thank you. How did it go last week getting recruits back in the stadium for the first time since 2019, and how important will it be this week to have a bunch of guys in town and be able to showcase a lot of the stuff you didn't get to last year?
Yeah, I thought it was great, and I thought it was important and needed. I think you guys know I've said this before. This is a special place, but it is something that you have to come and see for yourself. I think that's a really important piece to all this. not only for the seniors that are making decisions now, but the seniors that are making decisions now, they weren't able to go anywhere as juniors. So it's important for these seniors that are finalizing their decisions. It's important for the juniors that are really starting to get hot and heavy in this process and either making decisions or starting to kind of narrow it down in their mind, where they're looking at. So really important. And then obviously, as you know, for a long time, this whiteout game, year in and year out, goes a long ways towards shaping our futures. You think about how many great players that have come to Penn State that talk about the whiteout game having a big, significant impact in their recruiting process and in their decision. So, getting as many of the top players nationally here as possible, as well as getting some of the getting all of the regional players here on campus, we think is really important.
Tyler Donahue, Lions 247, and then we'll go to Audrey Snyder.
Hey, James, good afternoon.
Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Doing well. Eric Wilson, can you give us a little bit of a progress report on him through 2 games? Played a lot as a first-teamer for you last week, and Juice Scruggs after the game noted that he's had some pretty significant physical changes since he enrolled in May. Can you give us some details there at all?
Could you elaborate a little bit more on what you're talking about?
So Juice said that Eric Wilson has shed some significant weight since he arrived. He didn't want to give me anything too firm there, but it was something I had not yet heard.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. There's been other guys that has jumped out kind of dramatically. I'm not sure about what Juice specifically is referencing. It's a little bit like with my wife. I'm not going to necessarily talk about things that I shouldn't be talking about. But Eric has done a nice job. He really has. He is big. He is strong. He's physical. You're talking about 6'4", 307-pound guy. I think he probably came in a little bit heavier than that when he first got here. But once he's kind of adjusted to our program and the amount of conditioning and lifting that we do in season, I think he's in a really good place right now. Obviously played rotation. He rotated in the first game. And then played, I think, the majority of the second half, and then last week played a much bigger role. Right now we have him as our starting left guard, but we also think we'll rotate some other guys in there, and I think he's playing well and getting comfortable and getting adjusted to the speed, to the size of the game at this level, and we've been impressed with him. He's also a guy, as you can imagine, he learns well, he picks up things quickly. I think he's just going to continue to get better week in and week out.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic, and then Rich Scarcella.
Hey, James, how you doing?
Good, Audrey. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. 2 quick ones, if I may. First, obviously, USC came open. Your name's been mentioned among candidates. I don't want to take away, your focus from this, but just wanted to ask if you have any thoughts on that. And then second, I have a recruiting question for you.
Well, I'll let you ask the second question because you only get one question. I'm going to choose which one I want to answer.
Okay, well, then maybe somebody will follow up for me.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
As you guys know, I can't stand in any form of distraction. So I'll discuss this today with the Leadership Council so that we can make sure that all of our energy is on our preparation for Auburn, and that's how we'll handle it. I'm gonna talk to the Leadership Council today about it.
Awesome. And my recruiting question, you guys had a chance to get Kenny back here within the past year. How important was that for you guys, bringing in somebody that you had and then were able to get back?
Yeah, Kenny's been a big part of our program for a long time, and we lost him for a couple of years, and had an opportunity to bring him back, and I think a couple things. I think it was important for us to bring somebody back that kind of understands our culture and how we do things. But I also think it was probably important for Kenny to leave and go experience some different things. And, I think Kenny loved his time here and appreciated his time here. But I also think as he has, gotten older personally and professionally, so maybe things that he values, maybe became magnified in his life, and It just was a win-win. We were able to get a guy back that I got a ton of respect for, that I think is extremely valuable and does a great job for us, and makes sense in this region. But I also, I think Kenny's come back and really appreciates how we operate and how we go about our business. I think it's been a win for both. I hope Kenny feels the same way. I think he does. We're happy to have him. Hope he stays for a long time with us.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then Donnie Collins.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Rich. How are you? I was going to ask before you started talking if Chris Peterson's got a question policy. You're allowed to ask 3 questions, 2 questions. I'll make sure we're all on the same page. Just one? Thank you. Thanks, Rich.
All right. When you made the change at coordinator, you mentioned wanting the offense to be more explosive as one of the reasons for the change. Where do you think you are at this point, and how much room do you have to grow?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to be satisfied with where we're at on offense, defense, and special teams. I think we're always going to be striving for more. But I think we've shown flashes. I think we can be more consistent there. I think we can be more explosive. There's also some plays that we've missed. Whether it's missed a read or overthrew a ball a little bit, or maybe a different call. It's a combination of factors. It's execution. It's all of it. But I think for kind of where we're at in the season, if we just continue to get better and continue to take strides in really every area, running the ball, protection, explosive plays. I think we'll like where we're at. We're going to have to do that on Saturday. But I think we're making progress. But I think there's signs there. There's some signs of some really big plays that we've made. There's some signs of plays that we should have made that we got to execute. And then I think there's ways that that we're working on every week during the game planning session that Mike does a great job of, and so does the rest of our staff of finding ways to do it. I think there's also the factor in it, Rich, too, is depending on who you're playing and what their style is. Last week, it was pretty obvious that they felt like they were going to try to keep everything in front of them. And not give up the big play to keep the game close, and with as much success that they've had, on their win streak, was keep the game close, and they've won a bunch of ball games, and hopefully they can find a way to win the game at the end. It didn't necessarily play out that way, but I think that was clearly their plan going into the game: is play soft, keep everything in front of them.
Donnie Collins, Times Tribune, then New Bias Wilborn.
Good afternoon, James.
Good. How are you?
Real good. What's the biggest reason you've been able to kind of protect the ball on offense first 2 games, and I guess even dating back to late last season, while still being able to take some shots at the big plays and some risks on offense?
Yeah, I guess what I would say, Donnie, first of all, is I think that's been who we've been for the majority of my time here and the majority of my time as a head coach. We've done a pretty good job of protecting the football. You have to do that, if you want to be successful. Obviously, we've done it at a very high level so far this season. It's a combination of us emphasizing it like we always do. It's explaining it in meetings in a way that the players can relate to and understand the importance and the impact of it. And at the end of the day, it's about the players going out and executing the plan and also executing the fundamentals that are coached on a consistent basis. So we got to keep it up. We got to do a great job of that today. That'll be a major emphasis in today's practice. But I think it's been a big part of our early success, and we need to keep it going.
New Bias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, then John Sauber.
Well, I guess we got the rumor stuff out of the way, so I could go from there.
Hi, New Bias.
How difficult can it be? By the way, James, thanks for this as always. How difficult can it be facing someone that you have such close familiarity with when it comes to Derek Mason, as defensive coordinator, being somebody you worked with for years?
Well, I've never worked with Derek, but I know Derek. I know Derek obviously very well. Not only personally but also professionally. I think probably the biggest challenge for us, with these guys is the way their first 2 games have played out, and the type of people they have played. It makes it a little bit challenging on tape. To evaluate the tape. And again, with a new head coach and new coordinators, are we watching Boise State film? Are we watching Vanderbilt film? Are we watching Georgia film, Colorado State film, South Carolina film? What do you watch to get enough examples of, formations, of situational football and scenarios that you want to get covered? You just don't have a whole lot to work with. When you get into a game and it's a blowout early on, those late game reps are not as important in your breakdown, because I don't know if they are as realistic of information as you would get under a different scenario. So that's probably the biggest challenge. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the familiarity with me and Derek.
John Sauber, Center Daily Times, and Eldon Hayes.
Hey, James.
Hey, John.
You guys faced 2 different kind of defenses sort of for the first 2 weeks, with Wisconsin seemingly playing a lot of man and blitzing a lot, and Ball State backing off a little bit more. How does that help prepare a new offense, and how do you sort of use that going into this matchup against Auburn?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. 2 very different styles. Obviously one on the road in a hostile environment and one at home. We were able to score some more points, started really fast last week against Ball State. Game 1 started a little bit slower on the road. So what you'd like to do is kind of a marriage of the 2, right? You'd like to gain both of those experiences and be able to learn from them and grow from them and evolve and, start to kind of formulate your identity, and Mike getting a good feel for what we do well on offense and specifically what Sean does well. Sean getting a feel for Mike and how Mike calls the game and how he wants to attack the defense, kind of the rhythm of how we go about things. It's me and Mike working together in our communication on the headsets, in between plays, in between series. It's the communication with the offensive staff. It's all of it. And every game and every practice you go through that, you get more of a comfort level. I get more of a comfort level with Mike. Mike gets more of a comfort level with me. Sean's involved in that as well. It's all of it. It's all those things that factor in and how we operate, so you can get to a point where Mike is comfortable and knows exactly what a Tuesday's like around here and exactly what a Wednesday's like around here. I think those things are really valuable. And then obviously Mike has pushed back and challenged on some things as well, and Anthony Poindexter's pushed back and challenged on some things to think about that maybe they've done at other places. That should we consider adding it to our formula, or do we stick with our formula the way we've been doing it? So you do that every year. You're tweaking, and when you get people inside the program and they're able to see how you operate and then say, hey, this is something that we did at my previous institution that I thought was good and it may fit here, and how. All those things I think have been really important. And I think every day, every practice, every game, we get a better feel for each other, as a staff.
Elton Hayes, CNHI Pennsylvania, then Ben Jones.
Hey, James, hope you're well this afternoon.
You as well, Elton.
I wanted to ask you about Keandre Lambert-Smith, early into his second year for the program, how he's kind of progressed and the development and the growth you've seen from him.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with Keandre. I think you guys have seen some flashes already early in the season. I think that will continue to grow. Again, the way we were able to distribute the ball to 10 different receivers in the first half, that makes things really difficult as a defensive coordinator. But I think Keandre is going to have, you're going to see his role continue to grow as the year goes on. I think he's going to have a great career here. I think he's got a very bright future. Keandre, like a lot of aggressive, competitive young men, he wants to be, if your scale is A through Z, he wants to be at Z right now. He wants to be at Z yesterday. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. The most important thing for me and what I want him to recognize is how much progress he's already made and how much he's developing weekly, and building confidence in himself and earning trust of his teammates and his coaches. I'm super proud of him. I think he's going to play extremely well Saturday night, and I think you'll see that confidence just continue to grow, and the experience that he's gaining. I think you're gonna be very pleased with the development of him as the year goes on.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, then Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, Ben, good. How are you?
No complaints. You said a couple weeks ago that
Ben, I don't like that color on you very much. The blue tends to bring out your eyes so much more.
Yeah, well, you'll get over it. I appreciate the wardrobe advice, though.
You're welcome.
You mentioned as a play caller that there's 4 to 6 plays a game that can differentiate a guy, and that Mike had statistically done a good job of that over the course of his career. How do you quantify what those plays are, and what did you see out of him that led you to believe that, and how do you think he's done so far in that department this year?
Well, I think first of all, it's the overall analytics, and I think it should never be based on 1 year, right? And that's as a program, that's as an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. It should never be about one game. It should never be about 1 year. It should be about what has he done over his career as a play caller, and his credentials. As a play caller in many different conferences and many different circumstances is really strong. His resume is as good as there is. I feel the same way about Brent Pry. I think those two guys working together and going against each other every single day at practice, I think has been really important. And I think part of it too, Ben, is it's not always the exciting play that goes for 70 yards and scores a touchdown. It's the first down that somebody may not notice. It's running the ball on third down because we got into a field zone that I told Mike that you got 2 downs here to get the first down, and he runs the ball on third down, which would have put us in a manageable 4th down situation, or like happened Saturday, Sean ends up running for a first down on it. It's those type of calls that go a long way. It's the discussion that we have on the headset against Wisconsin about on third down, with them having 1 timeout left. Do you throw the ball here and pick up the first down, or do you run the ball and force them to burn the last timeout? And based on how the day had gone, how our defense was going, and how they were playing and where they were at from a timeout perspective, Mike doing what's best for the program right there and making that call. Obviously, those are the calls that maybe go unnoticed or unseen, that are those 4 to 6 calls a game. So I've been impressed so far. He's a creative guy. He's a fun guy. I think he's been really impressed with the staff that we've had here. It's kind of an unusual circumstance. You hire a coordinator and he comes in by himself. He doesn't bring anybody with him. And I think that's meshed and gelled really well, with Taylor and Jaywan and Ty and Trout. They're working extremely well together. So I've been pleased, and we just got to keep chipping away at it. And I do think, like I mentioned earlier with an answer, is, him getting more comfortable with how we operate here, him getting more comfortable with our personnel and our strengths and our weaknesses, and then how do we want to attack our opponents? He's learning every day. I'm learning every day. Sean Clifford's learning every day, and the more days and the more hours we spend together like that and practices the games, I think the better we'll all be.
Mark Wogenrich, SI.com, then Corey Geiger.
Hi, James.
Hey, Mark. How are you, man?
Good, thanks. Appreciate it. You just mentioned recruiting on Saturday a little bit. How many recruits, players, families, that sort of thing do you expect to entertain on Saturday?
The whiteouts are usually somewhere around 300, and that's, you got to remember, that's the recruit plus their guests. Some of their guests are teammates that are also recruits. Some of them are just, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, or high school teammates, or whatever it may be. But we're usually full. We're fortunate here having a 107,000 seat stadium. Our student section is bigger than most. Our allotment of recruiting tickets is bigger than most, so that helps for games like this, because you hate to turn people away. But this is a game where we typically have to turn recruits away. This is a game where we typically have to turn high school coaches away, just because the demand way far outweighs the supply.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then Mike Gross.
Hi, James.
Hey, Corey.
This series with Auburn was announced in 2016. Is there anything you can share about how a non-conference series comes about? Do you tell Sandy, I'd like to play these guys? Does she tell you, I'd like to play these guys? Or is it a collaboration? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a collaboration. I think the Big Ten plays a factor in these decisions as well. I think the athletic director plays obviously a factor in it, and the head coach, and you're trying to make the best decisions for your program, for your organization. You're looking at what are your crossover games that year. If you have the Big Ten schedule at that point, what are your crossover games? Who are you playing from the West that year from a strength of schedule standpoint? What are your other out-of-conference games like? All those things kind of need to be factored in, not just the number of home and away games. You have to look at it all. So it's a conversation, and it's an overall philosophy between the head football coach, the athletic director, and then also obviously I think the Big Ten plays a role in it. I'm a big fan of the neutral site games. I think those are things that make a lot of sense when you can play a neutral site game rather than committing to a 2-game series, playing a neutral site game where you have an opportunity for both teams to treat it in some ways like a home contest in terms of the gate, and those types of things. And then it allows you maybe to get into a region of the country where your fan base may enjoy it as well and see a different venue. So I think that's something to consider moving forward as well.
Mike Gross, LNP News, and then Joe Giuliano.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. You talk a lot about being able to run the ball when everybody in the stadium knows that you're going to run it. It seemed like that was a thing that you worked on a lot in the second half last week after you got a lead. I don't know, maybe you don't agree with that, but how do you feel like you did in that regard? And what are the sort of things that you look at to gauge how well you did in that regard?
Yeah, I think we're coming along in that area. I think it really helps as a play caller when you can call one of your favorite run plays based on that game plan that week and feel confident that you're going to pick up at least 3 yards. There's a lot of value in that. I think we're making strides there. I think it's also obviously whether it's short yardage situations, being able to kind of dictate your will on your opponent, whether it's short yardage, whether it's 4-minute, whether it's low red zone. Those things are extremely valuable, especially in the low red zone, because your playbook shrinks. You just don't have as much field to work with. The high lows are not the same. Down there, the vertical stretches obviously are eliminated down there, so it changes some things. But I think we're making progress, and to me, that's kind of got to be our approach. Is we just got to kind of keep chipping away at all these things. We want to get a little bit better on third down. We want to get a little bit better on first down. We want to get a little bit better in the strike zone or scoring zone, or red zone or low red zone or whatever it may be. Defensively, same type of things. How can we be better on first and second down so we get more third and longs? On special teams, we're doing a great job of punting. I think we're number one in the country in punting, but we want to be number one in the country in net punting. It's all those types of things. And although I think we're doing some really good things on offense, defense, and special teams, there's still a lot of opportunity for growth. And I'm excited for us to take another step with that today in practice, and hopefully we do that each day this week, and that leads to us executing at a higher level on Saturday.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer, then Dave Melandra.
Hey, James.
Hey, Joe.
You mentioned penalties in your opening remarks. You guys have had 13 in 2 games, and 9 of them have been for 10 yards or more. Do you feel that maybe a lack of focus might be one of the reasons? And how do you what steps do you take to reduce the number?
Yeah, no, I would not describe it the way you did. Obviously, I think you guys have heard me talk about before about the most important stats in football. We want to be a disciplined football team, and I think we can be a disciplined football team. But I do think there's a couple penalties that we need to get cleaned up, especially the pre-snap and post-snap penalties. They're the ones that I think you can't tolerate as a head coach. There's going to be some penalties that happen throughout a game based on going against really good players. That are going to happen, aggressive penalties, during a game, but you can't tolerate the pre and post snap penalties. So that's really kind of what we're talking about. But no, I think there's a lot of different areas that you would look at our team when you talk about focus and you talk about discipline. And I think I would describe us as that type of team. But this is an area that we can improve. We need to. I don't know if we're gonna eliminate them all, but there's 2 or 3 a game that we need to eliminate that could be significant and could be the difference between extending a drive or not.
2 more questions. We'll go with Dave Melandra and Nittany Lions Wire and finish off with John Petishnock.
Hey, Coach, got a quick one for you. This whiteout game has had an impact for you guys over the years. For those that never experienced a whiteout, can you just talk about the impact that it has on you guys? And also for those fans who are coming to the game for the first time seeing the whiteout, what's your message to them?
Well, a couple things. I think first of all, if you're a sports fan, you need to have a whiteout, on your bucket list. It's something that I think everybody should experience. For the fans that are coming for the first time, I hope you enjoy it. I've been doing this for a long time, and at pretty much every major conference, including the NFL, and this is as good as it gets. I think the impact and the electricity that it provides for our town and for our state and for the hotels and restaurants and bars and local economy and for our students and for our campus and community, I think it's special. I really do. When you talk about putting us in position for our future in recruiting and showing student athletes the type of environment that they're going to be able to play in one of the most beautiful settings in college football, when it comes to the town, the campus, and the community. All those things matter. And we're going to need this place rocking. I think one of the things that was great on Saturday is how many of our fans were in the stadium early. How many of the student section was almost full early. I remember 2 years ago at the whiteout, the stadium was almost full, maybe 90,000 an hour before kickoff. And to me, though that's what we need. We need each week when a visiting team comes into the stadium, that the stadium is already packed and rocking in warm-up, just with the anticipation of the game. So we need that on Saturday. We need every seat filled. Don't allow, if you're not using your tickets because you're not comfortable coming to the game for whatever reason that may be, make sure that somebody else is. I am willing to buy throat lozenges on Sunday for the entire fan base, if that means that we have the most challenging environment in all of sports. Chris, what's one of the most common throat lounger companies? Halls. Yeah. So I'm willing to buy Halls for everybody that loses their voice on Saturday. Halls, we'd appreciate your support with this as well. But I think that's what we're looking for come Saturday night. We want this place rocking. I got a ton of respect for Auburn. I got a ton of respect for the SEC. I want these fans and this staff and these coaches to go back to the SEC and say, I know we love our football in the SEC, but what they do up there at Penn State is special, and I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. I want them to have that type of experience and that type of impression of our fan base and of our university and our crowd. And I also want to make sure, which I know we always do, that we treat our guests with unbelievable respect and be great hosts.
The last question, did John Petishnock the Penn State football letter?
Hey, good afternoon, James. How are you doing today?
Good, John. You?
I'm doing well. After Saturday's win, Arnold Ebiketie, he celebrated with some fans, and he had a critical blocked field goal and a sack in the opener. What about Arnold's approach and maybe his personality has allowed him to fit in so well so early?
Yeah, he's an awesome young man. He's very appreciative of the experience that he's having at Penn State. He's always got a huge smile on his face. He's a mature young man. He's great with his teammates, but he also has got a really good way with the staff. He understands kind of how to live in both those worlds and do it in a way that's very relatable and respected. And he's obviously a very, very talented football player that's got a bright future. And he came here as a good football player, but I also think he has really developed in the time that he's been on campus as well, in the weight room, when it comes to body composition and nutrition and how he's practicing and then obviously his playmaking ability on Saturday. I've been really pleased. I think John Scott and Deion Barnes have done a really good job with him as well. He's very coachable. And I know Coach Pry and the defensive staff just have a ton of trust in him and how he plays. So, we love him. He's been a great pickup. He was, we had Victory Monday meal last night at Pollock, and he was there with my wife and kids, laughing and telling stories, and we're very happy to have him.
Thank you very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.